Greetings, brothers and sisters. This is Mary Lou Retton, who used to be a great athlete. I think she's only a little bit older than I am. And she is suffering. I forget what. I covered it earlier. And she went on an interview with Hoda, which can't be good for your health. Let's get into it here.
I just thought I was a washed-up old athlete, but the love was just, it touched me.
To hear you say the words, I thought I was a washed-up old athlete, like hits me in the soul.
It hits you in the soul? It hits Hoda in the soul. How does it get all the way to hell where you sold it? Look at Hoda.
Because I don't know if you are aware, but you are someone who people mark time with. You are someone who people have, you've made such an indelible mark on people's lives. And I'm sure you have felt the wave.
I have.
Yeah.
I have. I mean, now that I'm alive and I made it through, there were so many more positives than negatives.
To see Mary Lou Retton's famous smile, you can't help but think about her standing atop that Olympic podium in
So, she's not doing well there.
1984 in that red, white, and blue leotard and pixie haircut. The first American woman ever to win a gold medal in gymnastics, and the groundswell of pride and adoration America felt for her. She was on every magazine cover, in every ad.
You only get out of it what you put into it. So energizing.
And even the first woman athlete ever on a Wheaties cereal box.
She got the Wheaties.
What'd you have for breakfast this morning?
Wait a minute. Are they ignoring Caitlyn Jenner? Caitlyn Jenner was on... They just said it was the first woman, but Caitlyn Jenner was on the Wheaties box before Mary Lou Retton, so I think they're being transphobic here.
Wheaties, of course.
She was America's sweetheart, and she set the stage for the golden age of American women's gymnastics, which continues its historic run today.
Okay, so that's Mary Lou Retton. Okay, so I got a bunch of great memes and great short little videos here. But a few other things to get to. The ERUV wire. Did you know that there's an invisible wire hanging above Manhattan? I did not know that. Nope, the web of wires you might notice above your head while wandering through Manhattan, New York, are not all for carrying electricity. There are actually 18 miles of translucent wire that run throughout the borough called ERUV. Is there because of the Jewish Sabbath and a day of rest in Jewish tradition. People observing the Sabbath aren't permitted to do any sort of work in public places, which includes carrying things like groceries, laundry, or books. What the ERUV does acts as a boundary that symbolically transforms the public streets into a private space, which means is that those observing the Sabbath can carry things, socialize, and act as they would at home while within the boundary of the wire. I just covered this on my other channel. There was a girl, someone sent me a video of a Jewish girl, who was describing all the ways that she was hacking this holiday so she could, she had a light that she didn't have to turn on and a bunch of other stuff, right? Then this guy...
I'm going to try to get through this.
He's going to try to get through it. I mean, it's his job and all. He might not do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For what you did 3 years ago today.
You got through it. Good job, bro.
Please tell me your thoughts on this third anniversary.
Boom, he got through it. He did it. Somebody else put this in here. And, it's Peter Parker, also known as Spider-Man. So here are the funny memes.
Write a letter to President Clinton? Would he answer us? I bet he would.
I bet he would, too.
Kaboom.
Mother, there is no other like mother, so treat her right. Mother, mother. So treat her right, treat her right.
So usually when celebrities who aren't professional singers decide to release an album or a single or something, they hire professionals and songwriters and all these types of things. And I'm glad to see that Mr. T avoided all that, and he just wrote his own song about his mom.
M is for the moan and the miserable groan from the pain that she felt when I was born. O is for the oven with its burning heat, where she stood making sure I had something to eat.
When you're stuck, right, and you're looking for inspiration, it's always great to take a word and then use that word like he is here, where he says, you know, he goes through the various letters of mother and does a verse about each one because, you know, that's successful songwriting.
T is for the time that she stayed up night and took my temperature when I wasn't feeling right. H is for the hard-earned money she spent to keep clothes on my back and try to pay the rent. E is every wrinkle I put on her face and every worry that I caused when I stayed out late. The last letter R is that she taught me respect and for the room up in heaven that I know she'll get.
Kaboom! Mr. T, I didn't know he could sing. He was a multifaceted entertainer. So this is great. We're just fucking nonstop. There's another one. Oh, stop it! Come on, bro. They're just piling it in here.
Help me! Help me!
The best part is the kid showing up there. So this is a film where a mouse is going in and tidying up in a work shed or something. And I don't know what the explanation is because the stuff the mouse is putting in there isn't good for a bed. You know, mice will chew off stuff like plastic or wood and get little shavings and make a little nest for themselves or, you know, burrow a place to lay, you know, to give birth and things. But these things are hard. It doesn't seem like it's going to sleep in there. And it's very, you know, intent at cleaning up the area for some reason. You know, I don't understand the behavior, but it's like quite, there's all these different objects. It lets to put them in that white thing. You know, if it was something that we're going to use to sleep on, that'd be one thing. We can't really sleep there. And it's, you know, I don't know what's going on. It has maybe it has OCD or something. But it's like this long. Me and my wife were watching this before somebody sent it to me today. That's a, you know, platinum video. Bring this little cup over there.
Tens of thousands of radio stations, but Kiss FM is the only one that said that I had to censor my lyric because they thought I might be saying something bad. And out of all the radio stations in the world that played this record over and over, Kiss FM was the only one that was right, that caught on.
So now we know that she was demeaning children's morality even from the very first song and is laughing about it because, you know, that's not a good thing. This is behind the scenes of the Titanic. They're showing you know, think about the money they put into these movies, like to make this accurate. It's like in some sort of pool-like environment. The way that they had to situate the room so that the water would fill up in that way. But here's the scene at the end of the movie. And so, you know, that's what they do. Last thing a cricket protein burger sees before it is eaten. That's a wonderful meme.
So how do you know your last wedding is it? This is it for you, Jen. How do you know?
Because sometimes, because when they say you know. And other times when you didn't know, you also didn't know.
Were there a couple of times you walked down the aisle going,
That makes no sense at all. The second part should have been, sometimes you think you know, but you ended up didn't know. But either way, it's all fake, so why even bother asking that question?
I think you always go in with the best of intentions every single time, and that you ever leap into anything. I do, anyway.
Yeah, she doesn't, she doesn't go into a marriage with bad intentions.
Not just in personal life, but in my professional life, too.
and what has been
Yes, all these things. I always go in there with good intentions.
think of this, seeing you play up the wedding aspect of your life?
I think, he sees me as an artist, and he knows that I'm going to express myself.
He's the only one.
And he's always he's my biggest fan and my biggest supporter, as I am of his, which I'm so glad to be here tonight because, he's nominated and I'm so proud of him and I love the movie. I really do think it was one of the best movies of the year. So I'm happy.
I didn't really see it, but he was in it.
Happy for him and Matt, who are both nominated.
Right now, I don't know what to do. Somebody please send help. I'm just so sad. Help! He's the devil. He's me. Order!
Somebody get this ham sandwich out of my court.
Somebody get this ham sandwich out of my court. Little Nas X, this is his Instagram page. He has one post. My new single is dedicated to the man who had the greatest comeback of all time. J. Christ, January 12th, 2024. Be there, link in the bio. And then they got these, model-esque people pulling up Jesus' cross. But this is his post. This is his page here. And he just put another post up there. This was the one he had up originally.
Here's a throwback for you. Do you remember the Nightingale hospitals? These were the hospitals set up by the government to accommodate the emergency spillover of people suffering from COVID. But here's a strange story behind this. So during the pandemic, £24 million was spent on the beds and mattresses to fill these Nightingale hospitals. But most of them sat there gathering dust. In fact, after digging deeper, we found that 6,000, so 2/3 of them, were actually completely unfit for clinical use anyway, and then were later sold at auction on the internet, by the way, for as little as £6. Overall, so the establishment, the operation, the decommissioning of these hospitals has collectively cost over 530 million. And after austerity, the NHS just doesn't have the capacity, the resources, the staff to fill these hospitals. So in the end, these Nightingale hospitals were barely used. And then it just begs the question, one, where are the ministers responsible for this huge waste of money? And two, why is there no interest in recovering it?
I can tell you. It's a scam, right? So Jimmy Kimmel posted this March 2011. We are evacuating the island, dogs speed. This was right around the time when Jeffrey Epstein was having his thing. And so, this was, everyone thought it had to do with that. At least they do now. Tiger Woods announces his $500 million deal with Nike is over after 27 years with the sportswear giant. He's not, he's close to retiring, and that's that. So this is great here. They just don't want to chase him. Whatever he did isn't bad enough for them to chase. The guy did a little move there at Popeye's Chicken, and he got away. That's wonderful. Woman reveals... Oh, here it is.
I have herpes.
Congratulations.
I have herpes.
Oh, you already said that.
You heard me right.
I heard you. You said you had herpes.
And I'm simply done allowing that statement to cultivate shame for me anymore.
Good for you. To stop being ashamed of your herpes.
I'm done.
She's done.
I contracted herpes when I was 19 years old. I am 28. And
That's like 9 years ago.
I spent almost 10 years carrying around this heavy load of shame surrounding the fact that I have HSV.
Good way to just get rid of that shame and guilt.
I contracted herpes from a man that I trusted. I thought we were dating. Obviously, my standards were very low back then. And
yeah, you dated guys with herpes. You dated guys with herpes.
I had asked him if he had been tested, but I never verified any test results.
So I ignored the herpes on his boop.
And I want to also add that while I take accountability for the fact that I should have verified the test results, at 19 years old, I was extremely naive. I was raised in a very fundamental Christian household where I received zero sex education.
Exactly. You didn't know, you couldn't recognize a guy with herpes.
The extent of sex education that I received was one time my mom sitting me down and saying, "Hey, Lana, we need to talk about the birds and the bees." And I got really embarrassed and I was like, "Oh, I already know." And she said, "Okay," and walked out of the room. That was it.
Exactly. Did any of the birds and the bees have herpes?
I was pulled from sex ed in school, so my education surrounding sexual health was extremely limited. And also the way that I viewed myself in relation to men at that point was already very skewed. So I didn't question him at all when he said, "Yeah, I'm tested and I'm clean."
Exactly. And he had herpes.
Finding out that I had herpes was easily one of the most devastating days of my entire life. I can't even explain the feeling of defeat and helplessness that you feel when you know that you have a virus that is going to impact the rest of your life and the way that you engage with men. For so long, it really made me feel like I wasn't even worthy and I couldn't attract a quality partner. And I was so much seeking acceptance that
Well, you put a lot of thought into your herpes. She's put a lot of thought into her herpes. Okay, so I want to add this to, I want to add a few things here. I started making this video yesterday. I'm a day ahead of my videos, which is good because YouTube is yellowing, which means they're temporarily demonetizing my videos I'm uploading with Alien Miami thing in the title. So I'll talk about that tomorrow on my regular channel. I'm posting things there about that. But YouTube recommended two things to me today. Maybe somebody sent me this, I don't know. But remember when Ricky Gervais said this?
In this room are some of the most important TV and film executives in the world. People from every background, but they all have one thing in common. They're all terrified of Ronan Farrow. He's coming...
That's, the Me Too guy. Ronan Farrow, whatever, was the son of Mia Farrow and grew up in the Woody Allen, Mia Farrow household. And then he wrote this op-ed for NBC or New York Times or something. And, he got a lot of people, but he didn't get Woody Allen because Woody Allen is bulletproof, right? Woody Allen palled around with Jeffrey Epstein. And then Woody Allen married his adoptive daughter, who was 18 at the time, was obviously involved with her. He left his wife for her adopted daughter. And this girl grew up with Woody Allen as her father figure when she was a young girl. They can see them together as a family. And then, he made a movie where he dated a 15-year-old high school girl, and it was based on a real-life story where a girl came forward and said she dated Woody Allen years ago when she was this young girl. The girl was played by Mariel Hemingway, who was 15 at the time. She played an 18-year-old girl. But her first kiss with a guy was Woody Allen in a movie scene, right? So Woody Allen should have been Me Too'd more than anything. Of course, his other daughter, Mia Farrow's other daughter, accused him of abuse, right? So Woody Allen was as much of an Epstein person, and he walked away pretty much unscathed, right? And these Hollywood celebrities, including Alec Baldwin, all these people defended him.
Coming for you. He's coming for you. Look, talking of all you perverts, obviously didn't kill himself, just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up. I know he's your friend, but I don't care.
Kaboom.
You had to make your own way here in your own plane, didn't you? So, if you do win...
You had to get here without... So, that happened, right? And so then YouTube recommended this to me.
Of 2024, which is already a crazy year, particularly for me. Did you hear this story about me and Aaron Rodgers, the former quarterback for the Packers? All right, so what happened is he's a Jets quarterback now. He went on a show on ESPN, the Pat McAfee show, and out of the blue insinuated that I was nervous because the Jeffrey Epstein list was coming out. He said I was hoping it wouldn't and that he was going to pop a bottle of something to celebrate when he did. And then it did come out. And, of course, my name wasn't on it and isn't on it and won't ever be on. I don't know Jeffrey Epstein. I've never met Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not on a list. I was not on a plane or an island or anything ever. And I suggested that if Aaron wanted to make false and very damaging statements like that we should do it in court. So
that's your whole career. You said all these false jokes about Trump, and he does this regularly. This and the stuff he did earlier. This is the ultimate in betraying your oath as a comedian, right? Like they go on roasts and they say horrible things, salacious things, right? And he roasts people all the time. He's aggressive. He says harsh things, makes fun of people. And then what Aaron Rodgers insinuated was, this guy's been a shill for Pfizer and for these, Jeffrey Epstein people. And he's made comments about this before, right? And so, think about what he's saying here. He's just betraying anything that would be a real comedian. And he hammered Jay Leno for doing the same thing. He's not funny, too. He sucks at it. He's got writers and his crew, and he's roasting people, and he's sucks at it.
He could share his proof with a judge because, when you hear a guy who won a Super Bowl and did all the State Farm commercials say something like this, a lot of people believe it. A lot of delusional people honestly believe I am...
And you care about those people because you roast those people all the time.
Meeting up with Tom Hanks and Oprah at Shakey's once a week to eat pizza and drink the blood of children.
And that's your joke there?
And I know this because I hear from these people often. My wife hears from them. My kids hear from them. My poor mailman hears from these people. And now we're hearing from lots more of them thanks to Aaron Rodgers, who I guess believes one of two things. Either he actually believes my name was going to be on Epstein's list, which is insane, or...
It's not insane. Why would it be insane? You heard Ricky Gervais said that you guys are all pals with them and all these people that you hang out with. And, you certainly had connections with the way that he serviced Hunter Biden and the politicians. And, of course, Bill Clinton's name's on there, but all these Hollywood celebrities. He's had Kevin Spacey on his show. All these people that were on, had a connection. Jeffrey Epstein got around, right? I mean, the heir to the throne of England was a Jeffrey Epstein pal, amongst other celebrities and politicians. So it's not crazy. This is the problem with all these people because they're liars and they're deceivers and they're up to bad things. And the people around them and the people that pay them and handle them are up to bad things. And they don't want to tell you the truth, which I'm going to talk about. I'm going to do an introduction to this on my video tomorrow. I haven't talked about this in a while. And they're liars and deceivers. I'm going to repeat this, but I'm going to, go into it more in depth. And they blame us for, thinking bad things about them and believing bad things about them, whether they're true or not. I said this about the Epstein list. People put out a fake Epstein list and flight logs and things because that's the bane of the stupid truth community, right? But even with that, even with people putting out disinformation, it's their fault because they're liars and cheaters. If they were innocent, nice, good people, it'd be one thing, but they're not. And he's pushed an agenda here on the show, and he's got these dopes that, listen to him, but not really because his audience is dying. He doesn't really have an audience. There's a guy on Fox News that gets more, whatever that guy is, and that guy's annoying, gets more of an audience, of course, Tucker Carlson, than Jimmy Kimmels, right? And, there's people who are truther friendly or truther adjacent, and they get more, love and more passion from, he doesn't have real fans like they're, these guys, we'll tune into Jimmy Kimmels or they don't have diehard fans, right? Watch every show and this is the highlight of their day, right? They look forward to it. But all of us on the internet, I have people who watch everything I put out, right? And there's lots of people like me on the internet who have actual people who are interested in you as a person and what you have to say and your opinion. Nobody says that with Jimmy Kimmels, right? He's just a guy who's a late night host, and it could be somebody else, right? It could be Stephen Colbert, it could be Jimmy Fallon, or it could be a real good one, like, back when David Letterman did it, when he had actual fans. David Letterman had, a following, like a cult following, like a, not a cult, but a fandom following.
The more likely scenario is he doesn't actually believe that. He just said it because he's mad at me for making fun of his top knot and his lies about being vaccinated. He's particularly upset, I think, because I made fun of the fact that he floated this wacko idea that the UFO sightings that were in the news in February were being reported to distract us from the Epstein list. That was Aaron's theory that he shared.
Yeah, that's like a legitimate theory because we've seen this before.
I mocked. Well, let me show you the moment that so badly bruised Aaron's Thanksgiving Day parade-sized ego. Needless to say, all this UFO talk has the tinfoil hatters going wild, including Green Bay whackpacker Aaron Rodgers, who offered this.
Like I just made fun of this last time. We called him whackpacker. Like, you're showing this like it's good.
Hot take on the Pat McAfee show.
I believe that this has been going on for a long time. Interesting timing on everything. There's a lot of other things going on in the world. Did you hear about the Epstein client list about to be released too?
What's that? What are you talking about?
There's some files that have some names on it that might be getting released pretty soon.
Oh.
Might be time to revisit that concussion protocol, Aaron. So he saw that, and maybe to retaliate, he decided to insinuate that I am a pedophile. This is how these nuts do it now. You don't like Trump, you're a pedophile. It's their go-to move.
All the things that you said about Trump. And I think he talked about Trump being associated with Jeffrey Epstein. Like, I don't know, I can't remember, but he did all these other things, right? I'm sure that, he would have if he could have. All the ways that he's tried to mock Trump, right? And, he got into it. Like, he fired the first shot, and he, and again, you're insinuating that he has brain damage, and, like, you're saying these things about him being a crazy conspiracy theorist, which there's this anti-truther movement out there. And Aaron Rodgers got, roasted by the mainstream media, all these clowns, Stephen A. Smith, all these people who work for Disney. Disney is funded by Pfizer, right? This is your company that you work for. And he's done these hit pieces, which I showed you, for, the bloop and all that stuff. He did 3 infomercials, this thing. Let me play the meme here.
Because the quickest way to the heart is a syringe.
And so, you want it one way. You want to be insulted Aaron Rodgers and, create negativity towards him and create, animosity and things that people have for the truth community, which you've done to all of us here. But then when you're saying there's disinformation being put out about you, you're going to run to the courts as a comedian? Like, what a lame piece of, like, this guy's just, he always sucked. I've roasted this guy before, but now he sucks on a whole nother level. So I'm editing, and as it turns out, as you'll see in a moment, spoiler alert, he brings in the video of Jeffrey Epstein and Trump together, right? And so he's going to go on to say here, he's going to address how he makes fun of people, but he fact checks his jokes, which is not true. What he's saying here is Aaron Rodgers is insinuating that he's on the Jeffrey Epstein list, right? And in that, he's also insinuating that everybody who was acquaintance or hung out or met Jeffrey Epstein knew about his activities and participated in them. Like, he's saying Aaron Rodgers is accusing him of being a pedo, which, is happening with the truthers and people in the truth community, but that's not what Aaron Rodgers said. Aaron Rodgers just insinuated that he wasn't happy, or he said he wasn't happy that the list was coming out. But even if he was on the list, that doesn't mean he's a pedo, or it doesn't even mean he knew what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. That's what, RFK Jr. has said and all these other people. These people that ended up being on the list and going to the island and, being on the plane, they all are saying they didn't know what was going on. And that's what Trump is saying as well. And Trumpers believe it, or, believe Trump, but they don't believe the other people because that's how confirmation bias works. But what Jimmy Kimmel is doing here is he's insinuating that Aaron Rodgers, because he plays football, has had concussions, that he has brain damage. He's also insinuating that Aaron Rodgers, because he's anti-bloop, and he believes in these other so-called conspiracy theories, is a Trumper and voted for Trump, and I've seen no evidence of that. In fact, he's talked about RFK Jr. Being someone he would use in a debate against Fauci and whoever else it was, right? He went after somebody and he said, you can use Fauci and I'll use RFK Jr. It might have even been Kimmels, right? And so Aaron Rodgers is clearly not a Trumper. Neither are all the rest of us. And, they'd like to link us all together to flat earthers and cubies. Anybody who has an opinion different than the mainstream media is somehow a crazy conspiracy theorist that likes Alex Jones and likes flat earth and likes cubies or any number of things that they try to demean, right? And we are different people. Many of us are liberals, or many of the people in the community have a liberal background. Many of us are left-right paradigm people. Some people are don't vote at all. Some people are, whatever they are, right? And so he tries to lump everybody together, but it's not, this is insinuating that if you say these things, you're a Trumper. Like he tries to bring everything back to Trump, and he's trying to tie Aaron Rodgers and Trump together. He's going to do that again later in the, video. So what he's whining about here in terms of what Aaron Rodgers doing, he's going to do it. I'll bring this up again. I'll point it out again, but you can see it for yourself as it comes through here. He's he's being completely hypocritical. And I've talked about this before. If you're against a behavior, don't do it. But he doesn't like when the behavior is done to him because he's being linked to Jeffrey Epstein. But even if he was on the list and Aaron Rodgers, whether he's right or wrong about that, or he knew Jeffrey Epstein, that doesn't mean that Aaron Rodgers is calling him a pedo, right? People are making their own mental leaps just like his audience does. When he feeds them this crap and he insinuates things, right? And so for him to cry about it, it's classic. We do know he's a little boop.
And it shows you how much they actually care about pedophilia. But here's the thing. I spent years doing sports. I've seen guys like him before. Aaron Rodgers has a very high opinion of himself. Because he had success on the football field, he believes himself to be an extraordinary being. He genuinely thinks that because God gave him the ability to throw a ball, he's smart.
So you know this, right? You know this as much as he knows you're on the Jeffrey Epstein list. You're a psychologist. This is your take on Aaron Rodgers' inner world and what he believes and doesn't believe. Again, he didn't want to come out and say, he was avoiding the whole bloop question, right? Like he didn't want to tell people that he didn't get it. It was forced on him because he got COVID, and then it came out that he got COVID and he had to sit because he didn't get the boop. And that, it meant he didn't get the boop. And the media set in on him because it's sponsored by Pfizer and people like you who are shills for them, because you have ESPN, Disney has a, financial relationship with them and the whole agenda, and you pushing Biden's agenda and you pushing Hunter Biden and all the things I showed you in my other video, the crack stuff, the crack book stuff, right? And so you don't know what's going on with him. You don't know if that's what he thinks. Like you're not some, insightful person. You're not an expert in understanding other people's internal world.
Harder than everyone else. The idea that his brain is just average is unfathomable to him. We learned during COVID, somehow he knows more about science than scientists. A guy who went to community college, then got into Cal on a football scholarship and didn't graduate, someone who never spent a minute studying the human body, is an expert in the field of immunology. He just put on
You have to have a laugh track. Your whole life is a lie. There's nothing funny here. You're going on a rant, and then you're gonna if he responds to you, you want to sue him, right? Apparently, Aaron Rodgers is going on today, Pat McAfee, and he's going to address these things. I'm editing here, and I just caught another slanderous thing that he said. He said he'd never spend a minute studying the human body. But if you hear Aaron Rodgers talk, he obviously has, right? he might not have studied it in college, but certainly he studied the human body. All of these athletes, especially with their injuries, are well versed in the human body. They have to be. You know, I heard there's an interview with J.J. Redick, former basketball player, and Ben Simmons, a basketball player that's had multiple injuries lately. And they were both talking about various vertebrae that they've had back issues with. And they were talking about it with some knowledge, right, of the vertebrae and the way it works, the way to heal all these things. Because that's what athletes have to do, especially nowadays. They have to know their bodies. Their bodies is how they make their living. And Aaron Rodgers has done extensive research. And he can mock the research, but, you know, it's something that he's recovered from his most recent injury faster than anybody else, his Achilles injury that he got this year. And so he's clearly studied the human body. Even doctors and nurses that take anatomy classes and take, you know, allopathic medicine have to learn more just from practical approach. And all of us, as we get older, we have to invest more time and energy into understanding how our bodies work as our health starts to fail. Some people don't do it. They just, you know, stick their head in the sand. But people who want to regain health end up learning a lot about it. And we might not be doctors, but, you know, in terms of having a degree, but we know more in a different capacity because, you know, doctors and people in the allopathic medical community, if they don't branch out and look into other medical models or don't do, you know, additional research and have an expansive consciousness, they're very limited to the pharmaceutical industry and operations and allopathic Eastern, you know, Western medical approaches. And, you know, it's very limiting, right? And, you know, a lot of his friends, most people in Hollywood and probably even his wife and family, does some things that are not, you know, allopathic medicine. Almost everybody's doing something that isn't, you know, it's either homeopathy or herbs or different kinds of supplements and things that have nothing to do with allopathic medicine, right? That doesn't have anything to do with modern day science, but is, you know, ancient herbal wisdom and things. And he's demeaning all that stuff, right? Because he's saying only allopathic doctors and only the traditional, you know, the now traditional medicine is valid. And of course, we know all the issues with allopathic medicine, including 250,000 medical related deaths because of doctors, right? Everyone pretty much at some point in your life, you're going to have a bad experience with allopathic medicine and a doctor or pharmaceuticals or something, right?
On a magic helmet, and that G made him a genius.
The G made him a genius. That's your joke? That's the joke your team came up with? Like, how sad for you to be this bad at your job.
Aaron got 2 A's on his report card. They were both in the word Aaron, okay?
Whoa, kaboom. Boom. Like, if he can disprove that, can he sue you? If he can show you a report card that got actually A's, can he sue you, right?
And can you imagine?
Woo! That's what a brilliant joke, woo!
That this hamster-brained man thinks he knows what the government is up to because he's a quarterback doing research on YouTube and listening to podcasts. I looked it up. This is actually a thing. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger effect.
He looked it up. He means his team, he asked them to come and do research for him, to come up with something that sounds scientific, to dispel and to diminish and demean all of us that actually have critical thinking skills and don't believe the official story and look into things because we know that we're being lied to, right? This is this big thing that he's gotten his team to come up with, right? To tell to these dopes and listen to him. And he's also doing what I'm editing here, but I want to add this. He's also doing what he's accusing all of us and Aaron Rodgers of doing. He always mocks people for doing their own research, right? This hamster-sized brain person, he calls him. But he's just he's a low-level comedian. He sucks at his job. I mean, he's got a prestigious job, but he's not funny. And I don't think comedians would respect what he's doing here. I mean, he's a sellout. He's a shill, right? And he shills for the mainstream narrative. And he's on this shill network of Disney and ABC and, you know, ESPN and all this stuff, right? And he says that he went and did his own research. And he's not an expert at these things. He just psychologically analyzed Aaron Rodgers and his ego and his, you know, what athletes think. And he's insinuating that he has brain damage from past concussions. He's not a medical doctor. And he's, acting like a psychologist. He hasn't had any of this stuff, right? He's not a smart person. Like he's a remedial comedian, performing for a dumbed-down audience. And then he's using what we do. He's looking into some professional term, and he's going to use that like this way of categorizing people. And this is what truthers do. Like they copy us all the time. He's trying to rag on truthers, and yet they engage in the same behaviors because they know it works and it's interesting, and that you can go look things up on the internet and find reasonable explanations and explain other people's behavior or, link people to certain things, right? And all the things that he's whining about, he's doing himself, right? But he does it worse because he sucks at everything.
Is a cognitive bias in which people with limited competence in a particular domain overestimate their abilities. In other words, Aaron Rodgers is too arrogant to know how ignorant he is. They let him host Jeopardy for 2 weeks. Now he knows everything. And by the way,
Get all these laugh tracks. Look at him. Look at this dope.
I'm not one of those people who thinks athletes and members of the sports media should stick to talking about sports. I think Aaron Rodgers has the right to express any opinion he wants to. But saying someone is a pedophile is not an opinion, nor is it trash talk. Sorry, Pat McAfee. And
he didn't say that. He didn't say that. He didn't say that. He said, including Jimmy Kimmel, and whatever that meant, maybe you're on the list, maybe you're not, maybe you're not happy it's going to come out because it disproves your point of view because all these celebrities and politicians that you associate with are on it. Like, you don't know what his exact motivation is. But either way, you're doing the exact same thing to him, and you're demeaning him, saying that he has a lesser IQ than you, and you've got a bloated ego and all these other things, right? I mean, this is the ultimate in a bloated ego. And a guy who talks about politics and things when he sucks at life and he's just a shill. And, he used to be like a woman-hating misogynist in the Man Show, and now he's a Trump-hating feminist, right? He's changed his complete, everything. And he just absolutely blows, right? And, he's accusing Aaron Rodgers of things, but when it's done to him, he's whining and wants to go to the courts. So I went to eat lunch, and I realized that Jimmy Kimmel himself insinuates he's a pedophile. I just covered this in my last video. So this is a game he played on the Man Show, and he's really pervy. These are the only two. I show the thing that he does, Oprah Winfrey in blackface, Karl Malone in blackface, and these two clips from his show. Those are only 4 things I know from the show. Maybe I turned the show on briefly years ago. I knew it existed, but I don't remember ever watching it. So I don't, but it was a show where, by modern standards, it is all Me Tooable things. And these 4 clips are examples of ways Jimmy Kimmel should have been Me Too'd. For appropriating a culture, for fat shaming, and you have blackface and fat shaming, and also misogynistic, sexual inappropriate behavior with women. And here he is with these girls here. Kimmels has been so respectful of women over the years.
I've stuffed something in my pants, and you're allowed to feel around on the outside of the pants. You have 10 seconds.
You're allowed to feel around. Well, that's so nice of him. She's allowed to feel around his pants. What a guy. Look at how respectful of women he was. Look at how wonderful a man this guy is. He's allowing this, I don't know, prostitute. What's happening? He's allowing this woman to search his pants.
To then guess what is in my pants. You should use 2 hands. 2 hands.
Exactly, 2 hands, just one.
Before, haven't you?
That's funny.
Maybe it would be easier if you put your mouth on it.
Oh, that's respectful too. He's respectful. He's a champion of women.
How old are you?
18.
Okay, good. You sure of that? Because Uncle Jimmy doesn't need to do time.
Okay, so he didn't know how old the girl was, right? And so he just wants to make sure she's legal. She's just 18, so she's a young girl. He's in his 30s. He's a pig. I don't know when he got married. But he's doing this, inappropriate activity. And he's checking to see if she's old enough Then he calls himself Uncle Jimmy, which is really creepy. This whole behavior is creepy, right? Inappropriate. It doesn't jive with his feminist self. But by implying that the girl was underage and that he doesn't want to go to jail for the behavior he's about to engage with her, he's acknowledging that it's sexual behavior, that these girls are doing this behavior. Of course, that's the whole bit. And that, age is an issue here just legally, like in terms of he's worried about going to jail. And so he's admitting to being a perv here. This is being a perv. And, it's pedo adjacent. And so he's trying to sue Aaron Rodgers for insinuating he's a pedo and a perv. And yet he is doing that himself here years ago. And again, he should have been canceled for all this stuff, but he wasn't. And then there was this.
Jimmy doesn't want to do any time. You're gonna make a fine wife.
So here is Jimmy Kimmels going up and grabbing this woman from behind while she looks to the thing. The other guy's laughing. He's going to, I don't know what he's doing there. I think we know what he's doing there. And what else you got, Kimmels? There you go, Kimmels. Yep. There you go, buddy. Yeah, you're a feminist, buddy. Here's Jimmy. Okay, so again, he did this to himself, right? This is perv behavior. It's inappropriate. It's something that he should apologize for, this whole show, and also admit that he went from being misogynistic and, anti-women and somebody that you would think is more of a right-wing person, right, to being a liberal feminist. And he's had this huge personality switch, but he's the same guy. He's still an a-hole, right? And it's just, it's all of it, right?
As far as the, well, you say things about people all the time argument goes.
Go, kaboom.
Yes, I do. It's not the same. It's not even close to the same.
It is exactly the same. It's even worse because you do it on a nightly basis.
We say a lot of things on this show. We don't make up lies. In fact, we have a team of people who work very hard to sift through facts and reputable sources before I make a joke. And that's an important distinction.
Oh, come on. All the things that you say about Trump, you had Stormy Daniels tell you what his manhood looked like with giving a tray full of mushrooms. And, your fact checkers are ones that are going with the official story.
A joke about someone, even when that someone is Donald Trump.
You just said Aaron Rodgers, only A's were his name on his report card. Did you get his report card? You looked through his grades. You found that he didn't get an A in one class. So is that factual? No, that's not factual. You just made a salacious remark about his report card only having 2 A's on it that came in from his name, right? And so did you fact check that? No, come on. It's embarrassing, right? This is just embarrassing.
Who lies from the minute he wakes up until the minute he's smearing orange makeup on his My Pillow at night.
Woo! So that you know that factually.
Even he deserves that consideration. And we give it to him because the truth still matters. And when I do get something wrong, which happens on rare occasions, you know what I do? I apologize for it, which is what Aaron Rodgers should do, which is what a decent person would do, but I bet he won't. If he does, you know what I'll do? I'll accept his apology and move on.
You're such a big man, Jimmy.
But he probably won't do that.
Okay. That was his,
Since he won't apologize. I hope I'm wrong. That's how I think it will go. And I know you guys here in this audience, most if not all of you are on my side. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate all the nice things I've heard from so many people.
There's an applause sign going on right now.
But my real hope, the reason I even bring this up is because I hope the many, many decent people out there who vote conservative or whatever you want to call what goes on now. I don't see anything conservative about any of it. But to those of you who are part of that, I want to say this. And I hope you'll listen and give it a little bit of...
Here he's implying that all of us, Aaron Rodgers included, are all Trumpers and conservatives that are going to vote Republican. But then he, criticized, I think he went after RFK Jr. as well, right? And so, it's just, it's not only he's doing what he's accusing us of, but accusing Aaron Rodgers of, but also he sucks at it, right? Now he's being a concern troll.
If you are a member of a group that think it's okay to randomly call someone a child molester because you don't like what that person has to say, maybe you should rethink being a part of that group. And
Woo!
I also want to say congratulations to Aaron Rodgers, who has done the impossible. He made the New York Jets look even worse. And
So there it is. That's his joke.
by the way, are you looking for someone who actually was a friend of Jeffrey Epstein, who called him a terrific guy and bragged about his affinity for younger women? I have very good news, Epstein hunters. I found one for you.
See, there it is. Like he's associating Trump with this thing, but Clinton, this Jeffrey Epstein had the picture of Bill Clinton in a blue dress, right?
There you go. Just two fun guys checking out the ladies. Nothing unsavory there. Meanwhile,
After all that, that's what he found a way to crap all over Trump, right? And not all the liberals and all the people who were part of that group and all the Hollywood people and connections that he has. I just saw someone post on Facebook how Trump had banned Jeffrey Epstein from Mar-a-Lago, but it was way late in the game. It was way after he had said all those things, right? It's just everybody having confirmation bias, and everybody has it. And, Kimmel is doing hit pieces on Republicans and ignoring things with Joe Biden and, that horrible interview he did with Hunter Biden, which was embarrassing as a comedian and as an interviewer, and just, getting on his knees and servicing the guy, right? It was that bad. And so this guy just absolutely sucks. And invoking that he would sue Aaron Rodgers for behaviors that he's doing, insinuating bad things about people, and then saying that he doesn't do it. I mean, it's just, he's reached a new level of suck. I'm going to wait and see if Aaron Rodgers, he's going to be on Pat McAfee show. And I'll see what he says about it, and then I'll probably put that here. Okay, I'm going to show you the Aaron Rodgers thing. And I forgot to say in the beginning that I searched for this initially, Aaron Rodgers on Pat McAfee. And they had it up on Twitter, but they cut off the first part. In the first part, he talks about the bloop quite a bit, and Jimmy's role in being a shill for that. And then the video that I saw, you can't use it. It can't see it. Like I sent it to somebody else, and my wife and I watched something on YouTube, and that video disappeared when I was searching for videos. And most of the videos are about Jimmy Kimmel's rant, and it's harder to find. It's hard to find Aaron Rodgers' response. And when you do find a response, a big chunk of it's been cut out. I finally found it, the whole thing on YouTube, but it wasn't easy to find. And so you can see that they're pushing Jimmy Kimmel's goofy response, and it's hard to find Aaron Rodgers. Already there's some censorship there. Okay, so earlier in the day, I turned on the Pat McAfee show when it came on at noon, and they said Aaron Rodgers would be there at 1 o'clock. And I don't know how much of this I can use without getting copyrighted, because ESPN sucks about copywriting things. At least Kimmel, to his credit, allows you to cover what he says. Aaron Rodgers says some things that might be controversial about the bloop, so I'm going to have to beep some of that out. And earlier in the day, as I was saying, he had Pat McAfee at the bottom of the screen had a qualifier saying that there are a bunch of stooges there and they just give their opinions, and some of it's comedy, and their opinions don't reflect their opinions of their bosses or ESPN and all of that, right? So he was already just having putting a disclaimer on even before Aaron Rodgers came on the show. And Aaron Rodgers just lit Jimmy Kimmel up. And let's get into it here. I have to break in between because of the copyright issues and things. But here, let's start here.
A lot of things have been said. A lot of people have been taking shots at me without mentioning their vax status first, which I thought we established with Ryan Fitzpatrick. That was how we're going to do things moving forward. We haven't done that, obviously. So,
Nick
listen,
Wright.
jokes aside, I want to
Nick Wright did.
listen.
Nick Wright did. I heard
Listen,
Nick Wright.
yeah. Listen, jokes aside, I'd really like to get into this and then let's just move on. So, the history of this, before I get into what I said, what I actually said, and how I feel about all that, the history of this, whatever this is between Jimmy and I, this goes back to COVID times, right? And in COVID times, he mentioned on his show jokes about my immunization, which I know you also made a little joke about it. I'm not going to get into that whole thing. I've talked many times about that, but I made a joke about that. And the fact that my own research. He didn't just stop there, though. He.
So this is kind of great that he's going back and talking about the whole issue, because only one person has threatened litigation, right? Which was Jimmy. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel threatening litigation was just a new level of being a complete, boop, a little boop. And I think pretty much everyone can kind of see that. It's completely unmanly and unadult of him, and just not being a comedian, and I mean, living in a glass house, all these kind of things, right? You can dish it out, but you can't take it, kind of thing. And so Jimmy Kimmel already sucked and already was condemned by, smarter people. We'll get into that in a moment. But the way that he reacted to Aaron Rodgers after attacking the guy and, saying that all these things that Aaron Rodgers is going to list here, and there's things that he added today, right? Like calling him having a brain the size of a hamster brain, and these things, right? Calling him stupid, calling him crazy, demeaning all of us, anybody who does research, anybody who isn't a doctor or a professional giving their opinion about these things, right?
He made a lot of other comments about unvaccinated people, mentioning that they don't deserve treatment. If they're at a hospital, they shouldn't be given a hospital bed. He made comments about repurposed drugs that were being used all over the world that have incredible safety profiles that were derogatory. He mentioned that whole narrative for a long time. He gave a platform to one of the biggest spreaders of misinformation during the COVID times, Dr. Fauci. So in my opinion, he ripped me about the and that turns out to be an L on many occasions.
So he keeps score here, which is great, because the things that Jimmy Kimmel said we now know are not true. The things Joe Biden said, the things that mainstream media said. I've showed you my compilation of how they demonized unvaccinated people, and in ways that you could never treat any other group. The protected groups you couldn't treat this way, any of these groups of people, but it was okay to disparage unvaccinated people the way that they did, right? And I've covered all that in the past. And it turns out that they were wrong, and you could debate. I mean, people can find a way to twist the data, but things they promised, things that they said would happen, didn't happen. The way COVID, even they had to admit, Bill Gates admitted, Fauci admitted, that it didn't go the way that they said. That the fear that they rolled out, the demonization of people, the way that they said that this was the unvaccinated people were spreaders, and treating everyone who wasn't vaccinated like Typhoid Mary and these things, those things didn't pan out. And so they didn't have to get nasty. They didn't have to be the way that they were about it. And they were insulting and they were wrong. And so he's saying that's a loss. Jimmy Kimmel lost that battle. Aaron Rodgers turned out to be right.
It was not safe and effective like we were told that it was in the beginning. There are a lot of injuries now that we've seen related to the. So in my opinion, you went after me. That's fine. You're a comedian. Go for it. Not offended, but that was an L. Fast forward to, again, unprompted. We're talking on our show, as we do, about a lot of different topics. Somehow the Epstein client list comes up. And I said, it's interesting, and there were for a long time. Even still, there hasn't been a list that's been released. There's been one person's, deposition from a 2015 case, right? But we said there's an excitement to expose corruption. And what I joked about the other day about popping a bottle, there's excitement about when the corruption anywhere gets exposed and people who are accused of these heinous crimes get exposed. That will be nice, that we can get this all out in the open. That's not there. So I made this comment on the show whenever that was last year, right, I believe. And then unprompted, he comes out and says that I'm an overly concussed wacko. In my opinion, it seemed like because I believe that there was a list and that there were names on that, right?
See, this is important. Two things here. Because Aaron Rodgers is clearly smarter than Jimmy Kimmel. I talk about things, people's intelligence levels, and it's really their level of consciousness that I'm making fun of. There's people with different levels of IQs. There are people who are book smart and school smart. There are people who are mechanically in tuned, or, they're good with their hands and they're good at making things. And, people have intelligence that you have to give them credit for, right? Like I meet people all the time that I realize they're smarter in some area than I am. And when I meet somebody like that, I might have a higher IQ than them and have a higher level of consciousness, but they know more about something I want to learn about or need to know about. And so I listen to them because I see that they have a higher level of intelligence. And there are comedians and people in Hollywood who I, will say that person's smart, even though I don't like them or agree with them. Jimmy Kimmel isn't one of those people. Jimmy Kimmel isn't quick, he isn't smart, and Aaron Rodgers is much smarter than him. Aaron Rodgers is the way he's articulating these things, and he's more honest, right? He's more, sincere and more authentic. And you can tell that Aaron Rodgers is smart. So Jimmy Kimmel mocking him like he's stupid or he's brain damaged for his beliefs, and his beliefs turn out to be right, and Jimmy Kimmel's beliefs turn out to be wrong. If you're keeping score, Jimmy Kimmel's getting hammered. But Aaron Rodgers is one of the best QBs ever, maybe top 2 to top 3, top 5 on most people's lists, ever to play football. And being a QB, you need to be smart. You have to remember these plays. If you watch that Netflix series about the complex nature of being quarterback, and Aaron Rodgers is one of the best at playing the game. It's a game of chess that is on a quick timer, and where you have 2 seconds to make decisions. And Aaron Rodgers is one of the most efficient, low turnover, positive rating QBs. And Jimmy Kimmel isn't on the, there's thousands, millions of people who are funnier than Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel as a comedian and as a talk show host, he doesn't even rate on a scale because everyone's better than him. It's just that these lame people like Colbert and these people. But there's so many more entertaining and funny people you can find on YouTube or in comedy clubs. Jimmy Kimmel isn't even, on a list, right? So Aaron Rodgers is more efficient and more, he's better at his job, much better at his job than Jimmy Kimmel is at his. And so, he's getting rolled right here because this is an important point in what Aaron Rodgers said, right?
So, then we fast forward to this last week, right? And I said that a lot of people, and I'm quoting myself here, a lot of people, including Jimmy Kimmel, are really hoping that doesn't come out. End quote. That's what I said. That's the entire quote. Okay? I was referring to the fact that if there is a list, which again, this hasn't come out yet, this was just a deposition, right? And there are names on it, then that would be the second time that a soft brain, junior college student, wacko, anti-vax, anti-Semite, purveyor, spreader of misinformation, conspiracy theorist, MAGA, whatever other things have been said by him and other people in the media would be right twice. Now, let me just say that is the truth, number one. Number two,
which is what I took it as in the first place, that he was being mocked because Jimmy Kimmel said, "Oh, there's no list," and all this stuff about being, he's talking about tinfoil hat people and all these things, mocking us for looking into things that turn out to be right. We're right most of the time. Especially the good ones. Those of us who are, intelligent and, not disinformation agents and mature and things, were right more often than mainstream media, and certainly someone like Jimmy Kimmel. And so he was mocking him for, that if Aaron Rodgers was, that he would be wrong again and Aaron Rodgers would be right if a list came out, which makes Jimmy Kimmel's misinterpretation and him the paranoid conspiracy theorist, right? Because he misinterpreted and ran with it, right?
I totally understand how serious an allegation of pedophilia would be. So for him to be upset about that, I get it. Did you watch the quote? Because that's exactly what I said. Verbatim what I said on the show. Okay? I'm not stupid enough, even though you think I'm an idiot, and you made a lot of comments about my intelligence, but I'm not stupid enough to accuse you of that with absolutely zero evidence, concrete evidence. That's ridiculous. So I'm glad, and I think we can agree on something, is that...
So this is really important because, again, Jimmy Kimmel, I showed you all the things he said about him this time being stupid and all these things, right? And then saying, well, either he did it on purpose or he knew it wasn't true and did it anyway. And then he got into this whole psychological profile of Aaron Rodgers. But Jimmy Kimmel got the quote wrong. Because Aaron Rodgers said that he didn't even know the list necessarily existed and he didn't know any names on the list. But he was implying that Jimmy Kimmel would be unhappy if the list came out just because he had told Aaron Rodgers or people that there was no list and he might have made fun of him. And, of course, all the other implications of the list, right? And he never once implied or said anything to the effect that he thought Jimmy Kimmel was on the list. And even if Jimmy Kimmel was on the list, that doesn't make him a pedo, right? That makes him somebody who knew Epstein and these things, right? And whatever else, whatever else this means. And nothing's going to come of the list anyway. I've said this before, right? But this is really damaging to Jimmy Kimmel. The difference between the level of intelligence of Jimmy Kimmel's audience and Aaron Rodgers' audience and even Pat McAfee's audience is quite substantial. People who watch Jimmy Kimmel are, basically low consciousness people because he has nothing to offer. He's not funny. He's not, there's nothing about his show that's worth watching. It's a waste of time. Other than when he does something that's attacking us or, something that's mockable. But it's for, dumbed down Trump haters, and he doesn't have really a passionate audience. Where Aaron Rodgers has, much more intelligence, whether, I agree with him or not, his takes and his ability to articulate them are far superior to Jimmy Kimmel's, right? Jimmy Kimmel's just doing shill work and for a very dumbed down audience.
One, those crimes are heinous, and two, I'm glad you're on the list because those who are on the list, and this is what I think we can agree on, that at minimum there should be an inquiry into their involvement, especially if they went to the island, and at maximum there should be an investigation into it. So I hope that you'll give the same type of energy to these heinous crimes when they do come out and the names do come out and there is an inquiry into it that you gave to other subjects that I actually mentioned that you spent a lot of time working on. So
this is great because Jimmy Kimmel is not going to pursue this. Now, Jimmy Kimmel has admitted that being on this list that he mocked people for believing in the past is a bad thing. And being on this list is incriminating, and that, Jeffrey Epstein's a bad guy. So much so that he linked it to Trump, which he does, but he didn't talk about his friends and other people who are engaged in this. But if he's saying it's so bad to be on this list, then he should be, if he's against being a, pedo and all these things, then he should be just as critical of the list and the people on it as he is of Trump and Aaron Rodgers and other people, right? Anti-vaxxers or whatever it is, right?
I'd like to put this to bed to move forward. I don't understand, to just finish this up. I do understand. But I don't understand a Mike Voss comment because he didn't help out either. And I'm going to quote Mike Voss. He said, "Aaron made a dumb and factually incorrect joke about Jimmy Kimmel. It should never have happened. We all realized that in the moment." Mike, you're not helping. You're not helping because I just read earlier exactly what I said. So, and this is the game plan of the media, and this is what they do. They try and cancel. And it's not just me. It's nowhere near just me. I mean, if you look at all the different people who've been censored from the internet especially during COVID, the canceling that went on, the censorship, using the government to try and censor people that happened. And if that doesn't work, then they go to name calling. I mentioned a lot of the names that I've been called, and they don't stick.
Like I'm going to end this here, but it's interesting, all of it, right? And he has a very, and they get to claim some authority, which is the official story. They're always throwing the official story and the official shills, whether it be the intelligence community, the mainstream media, or whoever it is. And they, this is, we're legitimate because we're the authoritative, And this is what they use on YouTube and they use in these other social media platforms to demean people and all the rest of it, right? To cancel them. They use the official story, which is wrong, and everyone kind of knows it's wrong, that has any kind of a pulse. And everyone knows that they lie and they manipulate. And so that's how they're able to compete, not through being authentic, not by being reasonable or rational or being able to connect with people and have a human interaction. They just try to beat you with the official story, and they twist your words and try to demonize you because they know deep down they're wrong. They're on the side of the bad guys. They're the bad guys, right? They are, they're shills and they're, house slaves and, all these things that you could say about them. They are completely owned by people that are, evil in nature, right? Who are pushing an evil agenda. And if the truth is out there, they have to find ways to squelch the truth or demonize the people who are telling the truth. And that's what they've done, right? Because they have to make everybody bad. This is what Trump has done as well. They have to make the other side evil. Trump has to make everyone else evil. Trump's evil. Trump's, maybe slightly less evil in some ways, but more in terms of the damage that he does. Trump does more damage, but he's, he talks a little bit more truth than Biden, but he's just as evil. He's just as much a part of the problem, maybe even a bigger part of the problem, because they base everything around Trump, right? But when you make the other people evil and you demonize them in this way, and when you yourself are doing things that to be wrong, I'm going to cover this. I want to wrap this video up. I'm going to cover this. I'm going to start off my video tomorrow with an introduction talking about this on a deeper level. But anyways, let me wrap this one up here, but you understand. I mean, at least in terms of this thing with him and Aaron Rodgers. Like you guys all see this thing, very similar in a similar way because it's easy to see. Because, Jimmy Kimmel is objectively sucky at everything that he does, right? I mean, he has a job somehow doing this. He's a shill, but he's not a good one. Like, they can convince stupid people, but stupid people already are going to go along with everything anyway. The low consciousness sheeple already are going to get the bloop, right? They're already bought in. And so you're trying to win the other people over. And Jimmy Kimmel isn't going to do that, or neither is Fauci or these other people, to the whole agenda they were pushing. And so, they're not good at it because they're not going to have any success rate because, if you're at McDonald's talking about how great McDonald's is when people are waiting in line to get something at McDonald's, yeah, you didn't sell anybody. They're already there, right? People in Jimmy Kimmel's audience are already there. They're already going along with all these things. And maybe they need some reinforcement, but most of them don't have the ability to go outside the official story. But anyways, let's wrap this up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.